The way to gain a good reputation is to endeavor to be what you desire to appear. Socrates, you have been lied to about the nature of strength. Trained to believe that goodness equals weakness, that service equals submission, that emotional availability equals attraction. They sold you a fantasy wrapped in noble intentions: be her protector, her provider, her peace. Be the man who listens, who feels, who serves without question. But here you stand, confused and abandoned, watching the same dynamics play out with mathematical precision while you wonder why none of what they taught you works. Because it doesn't work. Not in the real world, where power is recognized through presence, not performance. Where attraction follows natural laws that have nothing to do with fairness and everything to do with polarity. Where the man who chases becomes the prey and the man who builds becomes the prize. You were taught to chase, to prove your worth through effort and explanation. But the moment you chase, you reverse the natural order. You signal that you are beneath what you pursue. You kill the tension that creates desire and replace it with the comfort that destroys it. You transform yourself from mountain to valley, from force to follower, from the one who commands attention to the one who begs for it. The harsh truth they never tell you is this: attraction is not an emotion, it is a response to power. Not the power of domination, but the power of self-possession. The power of a man who needs nothing from you to feel complete. The power of presence that exists with or without approval, validation, or reciprocation. Women do not fall in love with goodness. They fall in love with gravity, the invisible force that draws things toward itself without effort or explanation. The man she fantasizes about is not the one who puts her on a pedestal, but the one who stands like he doesn't need her applause. The one whose worth is not determined by her response, but by his own internal compass. You think connection comes through confession, that the more you reveal, the closer you become. But you confuse emotional dumping with vulnerability, neediness with openness, desperation with authenticity. True vulnerability is strength choosing to be seen, not weakness demanding to be fixed. It is the mountain allowing the valley to exist in its shadow, not the valley begging the mountain to come down to its level. Every time you text first, explain yourself too much, or seek reassurance for your choices, you hand over the manual to your operation. You provide a roadmap to your insecurities, your triggers, your weak points. What you think builds intimacy actually destroys mystery. What you believe creates closeness actually eliminates tension. What you imagine demonstrates love actually communicates need. And need, desperate, clinging need, is the death of desire. Because need signals survival mode, and survival mode signals weakness. It announces that you require external validation to feel worthy, external attention to feel valuable, external reciprocation to feel loved. But love does not come to those who need it most. It comes to those who need it least. This is where you discover the brutal mathematics of attraction. The one who invests more becomes emotionally indebted. The one who needs more becomes psychologically subordinate. The one who chases more becomes increasingly less valuable in the very pursuit of value. It is not fair, but fairness is a human concept. Attraction operates by natural law, and natural law does not concern itself with your feelings about its fairness. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote about the importance of maintaining your center regardless of external circumstances. You cannot control how others respond to you, but you can control how much their response affects your inner state. When you make someone else's approval the source of your peace, you become a slave to their moods, their choices, their attention, or lack thereof. But here is what they do not tell you about this dynamic. When you reclaim your center, when you stop needing her approval to feel worthy, you do not become cruel or indifferent. You become magnetic. Because the man who does not need to be chosen is the man who cannot be forgotten. The man who loves without desperation is the man who is loved without condition. The man who can walk away is the man she will chase. This is not manipulation, it is natural law. Water flows downhill. Heat rises. Attraction moves toward strength and away from weakness. When you embody genuine strength, not the performative kind that tries to impress, but the quiet kind that simply is, you create a gravitational field that affects everyone around you. But embodying this strength requires that you confront the uncomfortable truth about your own weakness. You must admit that you have been seeking in others what you refuse to develop in yourself. That you have been trying to get from relationships what you can only get from growth. That you have been looking for someone to complete you when you should have been working to complete yourself. The chaos comes when you realize that everything you were taught about love was backwards. That pursuing someone makes them run. That being available makes you invisible. That seeking approval makes you unworthy of approval. That the harder you try to be loved, the less lovable you become. This realization can break a man. It can make him bitter, angry, resentful toward women or toward the system that fed him these lies. But the wise man uses this chaos as fuel for transformation. He sees that the problem was never women, it was his illusions about women. The problem was never rejection, it was his need for acceptance. The problem was never being alone, it was his fear of being alone. You begin to see the patterns everywhere. The friend who calls you only when he needs something. The woman who texts you when she's bored but ignores you when she's busy. The boss who demands loyalty while offering none in return. You realize that most people operate from scarcity, always taking more than they give, always seeking to fill their own emptiness through others' abundance. But you also begin to see the few who operate differently. The ones who give value before seeking it. The ones who are genuinely interested in your well-being rather than what you can do for them. The ones who add to your energy rather than draining it. These people are rare, and once you develop the ability to distinguish between takers and givers, you naturally gravitate toward those who enrich rather than deplete. Nietzsche knew this when he wrote about the necessity of becoming who you are. You cannot become yourself while seeking validation from others. You cannot find your truth while living according to their expectations. You cannot develop strength while avoiding all resistance. You cannot claim your power while giving it away to anyone who shows you attention. The guilt you feel is not for being too emotional, it is for giving away your edge. For becoming soft when life demanded hardness. For seeking harmony when what creates attraction is contrast. For trying to mirror her energy when what she needed was your opposing force. For becoming her emotional twin when what she craved was your masculine polarity. Feminine energy is emotion, flow, fluidity. Masculine energy is logic, direction, structure. When you try to match her softness, you create an imbalance that serves no one. She becomes the masculine force by default, and no woman wants to sleep with what feels like her emotional reflection. She wants to feel your axis, unshaken, unmoved, unbreakable, especially when she tries to shake it. And she will try to shake it. Not from malice, but from instinct. Her unconscious mind needs to verify that your strength is real, that your confidence has roots, that your masculinity can withstand her chaos without folding. Every complaint, every silence, every emotional swing is a test. She is not trying to destroy you, she is trying to measure you. Most men fail this test because they respond with appeasement. They think she wants them to fix her emotions, solve her problems, eliminate her discomfort. But appeasement is the death of desire. She does not want a yes man. She wants a man who can say no and mean it. A man who has standards and maintains them. A man who draws lines and enforces them. This is not about being cruel or dismissive. This is about being clear. Clear about who you are, what you stand for, what you will and will not accept. When you become this clear, you stop being shape-shifted by every mood, manipulated by every emotion, redirected by every request. You become a fixed point in a chaotic world, and that stability is magnetic. The discipline required to maintain this clarity is not comfortable. It means saying no when you want to say yes. It means walking away when you want to stay. It means choosing your mission over her moods. It means prioritizing your growth over her comfort. It means being willing to lose her rather than lose yourself. This discipline extends to every area of your life. Your health, your work, your finances, your relationships, your personal development. You begin to approach everything with the same principle: what serves my highest good versus what feels good in the moment. You start making decisions based on long-term consequences rather than short-term comfort. You stop eating foods that make you feel sluggish just because they taste good. You stop staying up late scrolling through social media when you know you need rest. You stop saying yes to commitments that drain your energy just to avoid disappointing others. You stop spending money on things that provide temporary pleasure but no lasting value. But this discipline teaches you something crucial: you are stronger than you knew. You need less than you thought. You can survive alone better than you imagined. And when you truly know this, not just intellectually but experientially, you become unshakable. Because the man who is not afraid of losing what he has cannot be controlled by the fear of loss. This is when you understand that real power is not domination over others, it is sovereignty over yourself. It is the ability to remain centered regardless of external circumstances. It is having such a solid sense of self that others' opinions of you become irrelevant to your peace. It is being so grounded in your own worth that you do not need others to confirm it. This inner gravity affects everyone around you. Some are attracted to your stability and want to be part of your world. Others are threatened by your independence and try to pull you back into chaos. Both responses give you valuable information about who belongs in your life and who does not. People begin to notice that you are different. You no longer react to every provocation. You no longer get drawn into drama and arguments. You no longer seek approval or validation from those around you. You become someone others can depend on because you depend on yourself first. You become someone others respect because you respect yourself first. Lao Tzu understood this when he taught about the power of wu-wei, action through non-action. The tree that bends survives the storm, but the mountain that stands unmoved shapes the wind around it. When you embody this kind of presence, you do not need to chase, convince, or explain. You simply exist in your truth, and those who resonate with that truth are naturally drawn to you. The walking alone comes naturally once you develop this inner strength, not because you become antisocial or bitter, but because you become selective. You no longer tolerate relationships that require you to diminish yourself. You no longer accept treatment that does not match your standards. You no longer make someone else's approval more important than your own integrity. This selectivity is not arrogance, it is self-respect. You finally understand that your time, energy, and attention are valuable resources that should be invested wisely, not scattered freely. You realize that not everyone deserves access to your inner world, that intimacy is earned through consistency, that trust is built through actions rather than words. You begin to curate your social circle with the same care that a museum curator selects art. You keep only what adds value, beauty, or meaning to your life. You remove what drains, diminishes, or distracts from your purpose. You create an environment that supports your growth rather than hindering it. But this walking alone is not bitter or resentful. You do not blame women for operating according to their nature any more than you blame water for flowing downhill. You simply adjust your behavior to work with natural law rather than against it. You stop expecting fairness from forces that operate by different rules. You start playing the game as it actually exists rather than as you wish it existed. You develop what the ancients called philosophical detachment, the ability to engage fully with life while remaining unattached to outcomes. You can love deeply without clinging. You can give generously without keeping score. You can care passionately without making your peace dependent on reciprocation. The responsibility that emerges from this understanding is profound. You become responsible for your own happiness, your own fulfillment, your own sense of worth. You stop expecting others to provide what you can only give yourself. You stop making your peace dependent on their choices. You stop giving away your power and then wondering why you feel powerless. This responsibility extends beyond yourself. When you embody genuine masculine strength, you give others permission to be authentic as well. Women can relax into their feminine nature when they feel your masculine structure. They can be emotional when they trust your logical stability. They can flow when they feel your direction. Your presence becomes a gift to others because it provides something rare in the modern world: stability in chaos, strength in uncertainty, peace in turmoil. You become the eye of the storm that others can take shelter in. You become the rock that others can anchor themselves to when the waves of life threaten to overwhelm them. But this influence cannot be forced or faked. It emerges naturally from doing the inner work to become genuinely strong, genuinely centered, genuinely self-possessed. It comes from building a life so compelling that others want to be part of it rather than trying to convince them to want you. You start focusing on building rather than taking. Instead of seeking what you can get from others, you focus on what you can give. Instead of trying to extract value, you focus on creating value. Instead of being a drain on others' energy, you become a source of energy. Seneca knew this when he wrote about the importance of building your own character before trying to influence others. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot inspire strength while remaining weak. You cannot command respect while disrespecting yourself. You cannot create attraction while being unattractive to yourself. This inner work becomes a daily practice. You start each day by examining your thoughts, your motivations, your responses to the events in your life. You ask yourself, am I acting from strength or weakness? Am I operating from abundance or scarcity? Am I making decisions based on my values or based on others' expectations? You develop the habit of pausing before reacting, of thinking before speaking, of choosing your responses rather than being driven by automatic patterns. You become conscious of your unconscious behaviors and gradually replace those that do not serve you with those that do. The final truth is this: the game ends when you stop playing it. When you stop chasing approval, you become worthy of it. When you stop needing attention, you naturally command it. When you stop fearing rejection, you become rejection-proof. When you stop making others responsible for your happiness, you become truly happy. This is not about becoming cold or calculating. This is about becoming complete. Complete within yourself so that relationships become choices rather than needs, additions rather than requirements, gifts rather than necessities. When you reach this place, you love without desperation, give without expectation, and remain without clinging. The man who achieves this level of self-mastery is never forgotten because he represents something rare in a world full of needy, seeking, validation-hungry people. He represents the possibility of genuine strength, authentic confidence, real independence. He becomes proof that it is possible to be whole without another person completing you. This transformation does not happen overnight. It requires patience, persistence, and the willingness to be uncomfortable as you break old patterns and build new ones. You will face resistance from within yourself as old habits fight to maintain themselves. You will face resistance from others who preferred you when you were easier to manipulate. But each day that you choose your growth over their comfort, each time you choose your truth over their expectations, each moment you choose your strength over their weakness, you become more yourself. You shed the layers of conditioning that taught you to be small, accommodating, and approval-seeking. You begin to discover who you really are underneath all the programming. You find your authentic voice, your genuine desires, your true values. You connect with the part of yourself that existed before the world taught you to be afraid of your own power. This is your inheritance and your challenge. To stop seeking in others what you can only find in yourself. To stop giving away your power and then wondering why you feel powerless. To stop making someone else's approval more important than your own integrity. To become the kind of man who does not need to be chosen because he has already chosen himself. The path is not easy, but it is simple. Build yourself into someone you respect. Create a life you love. Develop standards you maintain. Pursue goals that matter to you. Become so centered in your own worth that others' opinions become interesting but irrelevant to your peace. When you do this work, when you reclaim your center and maintain your frame, when you love without clinging and give without depleting yourself, you become magnetic. Not through manipulation or strategy, but through the simple power of authentic strength. And that strength, once developed, can never be taken from you. You become a man who attracts rather than chases, who gives value rather than seeks it, who creates rather than consumes. You become someone others want to be around not because you need them, but because being around you makes them feel more alive, more capable, more themselves. This is how you win, not by conquering others, but by conquering yourself. Not by being chosen, but by becoming the chooser. Not by getting love, but by being love itself. This is the path of the sovereign man, the self-possessed man, the man who has discovered that everything he was seeking outside himself was already within him all along.